It almost doesn't sound real, but we are in the year 2025, which means the World Cup is just 18 months away. Absolutely mental. It is officially go time for teams like Mexico as they prepare for the biggest sporting competition on the planet. No, I'm not one of those delusional Americans who think the Super Bowl is bigger than the World Cup. And as 2025 progresses, I think there are several storylines to watch regarding the Mexican national team as they prepare for the Mundial. In today's video, I've compiled my top 5 for you guys. Before I get into this though, make sure you leave a like on the video, hit subscribe for more videos about the Mexican national team in English, and let me know what is the #1 thing you will be watching regarding Mexico this year. Are you gonna have your eye on a player? Are you having an eye on a particular match, particular competition? Is there something you want to see? Let me know down below in the comments. Storyline #1, does somebody replace Edson Alvarez as Mexico's best player? Starting off with a bit of a softy here. Now, I could totally be wrong about this, but I believe if you polled the majority of Mexican fans, we would still have a slight majority for Edson as the best Mexican. I tell you what though, I believe that Raul Jimenez and Johan Vazquez are right behind him in the rankings. Edson has been part of a pretty down bad and absolutely chaotic West Ham team that I believe is sitting 14th in the table as of time of recording, which is completely shocking given the amount of talent on that team. And as I touched on, he himself has not looked that impressive, and I've even seen links for him making a possible return to the Dutch league, which of course would leave me distraught if that happens. Now, I'm not one of those people that overreact and think that Edson is finished or Tyler Adams is clear or whatever else you want to say. I just think he's playing in a bad team with a really bad vibe in the locker room, and he probably does need either a managerial change or a change of location. However, happening at the very same time, you have Raul Jimenez in the form of his life for Fulham right now, and he just passed Chicharito as the Mexican with the most goals in the history of the Premier League. And Johan Vazquez, who just kind of does his thing over there in the shadows at Genoa because Serie A, well, I think it's getting more popular, doesn't have the cloud of the Prem, and he's not at a big six team in Italy, so he's just kind of doing his thing. It doesn't really get the flowers that he should. However, I have seen links for Johan Vazquez to go to bigger Italian teams like Juventus, and if he goes to Juventus and he still keeps balling out, why couldn't he be better than Edson? At least personally, I still do consider Edson the best Mexican player as of time of recording, but it's by a toenail, bro. For me, Johan Vazquez just needs a move to a bigger club to overtake him, and Raul Jimenez probably just needs a couple more goals for Fulham. He's got 8 on the season already, and I will say a couple more good performances for the Mexican national team in competitive games. Yes, he turned into Superman when we beat the US 2-0, but that was a friendly in Guadalajara. I want to see something in a Nations League, for example. But that's just my take on it. You guys let me know down below. Storyline #2. This one's a bit spicier. Does Javier Aguirre survive 2025? Y'all can disagree down below, but I actually think it's more likely he gets sacked than makes it to 2026. Now, would that be reactionary by the FMF? Possibly. Foolish? Perhaps. But let's not pretend like the Mexican national team makes decisions based on logic and hard data. Those guys can be more dramatic than the main character in a telenovela. And we've seen time and time again with Mexican managers in the past, it doesn't take much to get the sack. Let's not forget that Diego Coca only lost 1 game in charge with Mexico, albeit it was a 3-0 smackdown at the hands of the United States. But then he went on to beat Panama in the 3rd place trophy in the Nations League. Guess what? Didn't matter. Adios. In my opinion, there are 2 main points in which Aguirre could be sacked. #1 is the upcoming Nations League in March. I'm just going to say it right now. If Canada beats Mexico 3-0 or 3-1, if it's a beatdown and embarrassment, he probably will be sacked. Some of y'all might be like, oh, Jack, no, there's no way. Aguirre, he's our grandpa, whatever. Nah. A result such as that will be extremely embarrassing for Mexico. The FMF will look for somebody to blame. They'll probably ask Memo Ochoa to officially retire, and they'll sack Javier Aguirre. That's just what's going to go down. The second point is the 2025 Gold Cup. Now, if Aguirre survives the Nations League and does make it to the Gold Cup, the only way I would see him sacked at the Gold Cup itself is if Mexico got grouped, which is going to be highly, highly unlikely. On top of that, though, it is possible that Mexico finish second in the group or win the group and then get bounced bounced in the quarterfinals. And if we get bounced in the quarterfinals in an embarrassing fashion, or we lose on penalties to a smaller profile team, or, Saudi Arabia being the confirmed guest nation, I think there's a 50% chance that he goes. Mexico gets grouped, he's definitely sacked. Mexico goes out in the quarterfinals, 50-50. I know some of you might think I'm getting ahead of myself here, that I'm an Aguirre hater, which is not true. I've just seen too many times where Mexican coaches don't really have a lot of health points, and it doesn't take much for these guys to go. Will Aguirre make it to 2026? Let me know down below in the comments. Storyline number 3. How does Javier Aguirre, or another Mexican manager, solve the Raul Jimenez, Santi Gimenez problem? We are currently in a reality where 2 of Mexico's best players are strikers. So what the heck do we do? I have said multiple times on the channel that I would like us to at least experiment with a 4-4-2. And I'm going to draw a comparison here with another national team. Another national team that's probably on the same level as Mexico, if not even a little bit better right now. And that is Norway. Now, Norway play a 4-4-2 with Erling Haaland and Alexander Sorloth up front. And for me, it's very simple. Both Norway and Mexico are in the same position where, not being the most talented national teams, you cannot afford to have some of your best players on the bench. Is the 4-4-2 a little bit old school? Is it a little bit defensive and kind of boring at times? Sure. But when you're Norway and you have the top goal scorer in La Liga and the top goal scorer in the Prem on your team, you gotta play those guys at the same time. If you're Mexico and you have Raul Jimenez scoring 8 goals halfway through the Prem season and Santi Gimenez getting Santi numbers in the Eredivisie, you have to play both of them. I'm sorry, you at least have to try. So that's what we need to do, a 4-4-2 with those 2 guys up front, and let's play some wingers and some fullbacks who can put a ball in the box. Try it out for 5 games. If it doesn't work, we can always go back to the 4-3-3 or the 4-2-3-1 or whatever we want to do, but this needs to be an experiment. If you had to pick one right now for the national team, it's probably Raul Jimenez, but why not pick both? The 4th storyline is what on earth is going to happen with the starting goalkeeper position for Mexico? You guys let me know down below in the comments who you want to be Mexico's starting goalkeeper in 2025 and going into the next World Cup. And in my opinion, this is probably the most uncertain or the most competitive position in the Mexican national team. I think you could maybe make an argument for the striker position or maybe the 10, because we don't have any 10s that are even average. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the guys currently in the depth chart. And I will start from the beginning. And that is Luis Malagon from America, who is probably, as of time of recording, the #1 option. Underneath him, we have Memo Ochoa, who I would probably say is the #2 right now due to his poor performance against Honduras and despite the fact that he's 55 years old. Raul Rangel with Chivas is also in the depth chart, only has a few caps, but he has been included in both of Javier Aguirre's call-ups, or I guess I should say all 3 of his call-ups. Julio Gonzalez from Pumas, who started all 3 games for Mexico at the Copa America, only allowed a single goal, but I'm not really sure what his club situation is looking like. Looks like Alex Padilla is being brought in to replace him, so he could fade into irrelevancy. We're just going to have to wait and see. And then you got a couple young guns who, let's be honest, probably are never going to be given a shout, and that is Alex Padilla from Athletic Club, currently on loan at Pumas, and Fernando Tapia from Tigres. I'm just going to say it right now, Mexico has more goalkeepers contending for the starting spot than any other national team in the world. I refuse to believe there's another team out there that's got 6 or 7 guys trying to be the starting goalkeeper. Not only the competition, but also the division inside the fan base over who is the best. As stated, I do think Malagon is going to be the starter, and it is his position to lose. But a string of either bad performances or a couple injuries could completely shake up the depth chart. I just gave you my depth chart, not really in a particular order, in 2025. Ask me again at the end of the year, could be completely different. And lastly, storyline number 5. Does Mexico end the year with a trophy? And if Mexico does end the year with a trophy, which one is more important? And if Mexico ends the year without any trophy, what are the consequences of that? I kind of bundled 3 different storylines into one here. You're welcome. Hit subscribe and drop a like on the video. I'll break it down this way. If the 2025 Gold Cup is taken seriously for the first time in recent memory, and everybody sends an A team, and there are a couple guest nations that are at least halfway decent, I think winning that would be impressive, because winning a legitimate Gold Cup would surely mean competitive victories against either the U.S. men's national team, Canada, Panama, or all 3 potentially. And if that happens, we all just have to throw our hands up and say that's a win. I know we always talk about the Gold Cup as Mickey Mouse because it is Mickey Mouse, but if we were to take it seriously and Mexico were to get consecutive wins against those teams, you're kind of just a hater if you don't think that's impressive. Now, if the 2025 Gold Cup isn't taken seriously and the only teams sending their A players are Mexico and the Caribbean, then winning that is Mickey Mouse and won't be constituted or classified as a win. I mean, we saw that with the 2023 Gold Cup. Mexico won that, and it meant basically nothing. We learned almost nothing from that tournament. I say all that to say that for me, winning the 2025 Nations League is hands down the most impressive trophy that Mexico could win this season. And that's mainly because Mexico's never won the Nations League. We've had the tournament 3 damn times, and the United States has won all 3. They're going for the 4-peat. We cannot allow that to happen. On top of that, it also means taking down a red-hot Canada, probably the best team in CONCACAF right now, and a Pochettino-led U.S. men's national team in the finals. And if Mexico somehow walks out of 2025 with both the Nations League and the Gold Cup, lifetime contract for Javier Aguirre. And those live stream watch-alongs are about to go so crazy, let me tell you. Alcohol may or may not be involved. Now, if Mexico does not win a single trophy this year, the consequence is likely Javier Aguirre losing his job. Even if Mexico were to lose both finals, I do still think he would be sacked, because the Federation would panic and look for somebody to rebound morale before the 2026 World Cup. I think another consequence of a trophyless year for Mexico are a lot of the senior players, including Memo Ochoa, probably finally retiring. Not just that, but I do think some other players who we view as locked-in starters could probably lose their places. I'm looking at somebody like Luis Chavez, for example, or maybe even Cesar Montes loses his spot as one of the starting CBs. In addition, I do think that would mean that Canada and the United States have officially separated themselves from the rest of the CONCACAF teams as the only A-tier nations in the region, with Mexico sliding in next to Panama and Costa Rica as the tier B. And no, Jamaica's not tier B. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not. And lastly, it would mean that Mexico is going into a home World Cup with not only the least talented generation ever, but also the lowest morale we've ever seen inside the national team. Now, does that lead to an embarrassing group stage exit, or can that be used as a catalyst for a surprise run? We'll just have to wait and see. And that's the video, guys. Those are my 5 storylines to watch for Mexico in 2025. You let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Is there a storyline I forgot that you're paying particular attention to? I would love to hear from you guys. Again, hit subscribe if you want more videos about the Mexican national team in English. We have a couple CONCACAF tournaments this year, and I cannot wait to cover every single game in those tournaments. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.